Oxnard. I think you've got all the facts pretty right at this point. The quake hit at about 12:29. As you reported, it was a magnitude 5.3. I'm looking at the tsunami statement right now from the National Tsunami Warning Center, and as you pointed out, there is no threat of tsunami, no tsunami warnings at this time, and we don't anticipate any. It's certainly a good reminder for everybody. We do live in Southern California. This is kind of life as usual, and it's just a good reminder for all of us to be prepared. We're not receiving any reports of damage, shaken nerves certainly, but no damage here in the city of Oxnard, and we're in constant contact with the County of Ventura Office of Emergency Services as well, and they're reporting the same thing. No reports of any significant damage.
And Scott, how quickly did you guys go into earthquake mode when you know, okay, we got to hit the ground running?
Virtually instantaneously. As soon as we all look around and look at each other and say, is that an earthquake, we begin the assessment. First we assess if we're safe, and then we begin to assess our critical facilities, and then move out to notifying the public as quickly as possible as to any additional threats. We certainly were lucky this time. There were no additional threats, and again, it's just that reminder of where we live and what we have to be prepared for.
The police department said no damage. You were mentioning no tsunami. Fire department is getting that information as well?
That's correct. Certainly, we've done a complete inventory of all of our emergency services, a roll call, as we call it, to make sure that that everything is functioning as it needs to be, and all of our emergency services are intact and ready to go. I know the county was doing exactly the same thing, and everybody's reporting back that no damage was sustained. We're not getting reports from the public of any damage. So again, I think we got lucky on this one, and we'll hope that the next one is off the coast as well.
Let's hope so. All right, Scott Brewer with Oxnard Fire, thank you very much. And
Thank
of course,
you,
a lot of people, Sandra, worried about aftershocks. We heard from that one viewer right there in Ventura County. She was worried. She went through a very serious earthquake up in Northern California. She was in it where she saw a lot of damage. And of course, there's a lot of concern that there could be more to come. But it looks like the 5.3 earthquake is what we're looking at right now. And of course, there is always that possibility of aftershocks over the next few days.
Yeah, a little bit of comfort and wisdom from the USGS saying that there's no indication that this is a precursor to a larger earthquake. It is what it is. It's a 5.3 earthquake that hit just about 12:29. A lot of people felt it all the way from San Luis Obispo. Now we're getting reports Palmdale, the Inland Empire, Bakersfield. So a lot of people felt it. They knew instantly what it was. Our reporter Dave Bryan said it went on for about 10 seconds. A lot of people describing a sharp jolt and then a little bit of rolling afterwards. Let's go back to the telephone. Yvonne Mignard from Channel Islands National Park is joining us this afternoon on the telephone. And you're pretty close to where the epicenter was.
I'm actually on shore here in Ventura, California. So the islands that which are closer to the epicenter are Santa Cruz and Santa Rosa Island. They are two of the 5 islands within Channel Islands National Park, and they're 18 and 40 miles off the coast of Ventura.
And I know, in fact, I was just boating in the area on Sunday. We were out by Santa Cruz Island. I know you have rangers there on the island. What did they report feeling?
Right now, we have no reports of damage. We definitely had staff and visitors on the island who felt the earthquake.
And how did they describe it, Yvonne?
Similar to what you just described, a jolt and then some rolling. We felt it here in our mainland visitor center as well, and we evacuated the building, and after checking everything was clear, let visitors return.
So visitors have returned to the park. Everything is back to normal as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, the visitors on the islands, we have no reports of any incidents or any damage to any structures.
And where you are right now, everything's okay as well?
Oh, yes.
All right.
All right, Yvonne Mignard from the Channel Islands National Park speaking to us this afternoon from Ventura, again saying that there were visitors and there were some other folks out on the island. Santa Cruz Island is where was closest to where it hit underwater this afternoon. Live pictures now from Sky 9 up over the area, and boy, the hills look beautiful. All that rain made everything green.
We received, yeah, these are our first pictures from our chopper there. You can see the area that may have been affected by this earthquake earlier today. 12:29 was the time when this happened, 11 miles deep, and as far as we know right now, no reports of any damage. There are no threats of any tsunami warnings happening along our coast, so that is good news. But of course, there is still the possibility of feeling aftershocks over the next few days or so. So we are keeping an eye on that. But right now, most fire departments are on earthquake mode right now. They're going to be checking some of those bridges and tunnels and areas that may be affected by the earthquake, just to make sure that it is safe. We just spoke to Yvonne there from the Channel Islands area there. She said that everything went back to normal along the coast there. So looks like things are shaping up to be okay. But again, we are getting preliminary pictures into our newsroom. We're getting preliminary reports as well, so things could change as the afternoon rolls on.
Yes, we are getting some video of things that have been shaking, kind of rolling around out there. The first crews, the emergency responders, have been out surveying the streets and the bridges and overpasses. Again, we don't have any reports of damage, so that's the good news. But if you're out driving around this afternoon, you might see fire crews and other emergency responders taking a look at some of the structures, because they want to make sure that everything is safe. But with a 5.3 earthquake, we do expect some damage, some minor damage, maybe to buildings that were not up to code, buildings that are a little bit older. But because this happened offshore, because it happened underwater, when we talked to the USGS spokesperson, John Bellini told us that no, because it was offshore, they don't anticipate getting any reports of real damage.
And Sandy, checking with the LAPD right now, they said they are aware, of course, of the earthquake center near the Channel Islands. They're working with their partners to check infrastructure and critical locations. They're asking everyone right now to please keep 911 lines open for emergency-related calls only. If you have a non-emergency call, very easy number to remember. That's 1-877-ASK-LAPD, 1-877-ASK-LAPD. Keep those emergency lines open, the 911 lines open, for people who actually have an emergency and need to get help right away.
Yeah, I can imagine the response when it happens. Everybody's instinct is to call 911 and say, was that an earthquake? So we can let you know that, yes, it was an earthquake, and yes, a lot of people felt it, but it looks like everybody's okay. Let's go back to the telephone right now. We have George White, who lives in Santa Barbara, on the telephone with us this afternoon. And George, I can imagine you're calling in because you felt it.
Oh, yeah, we felt it good.
What was it like? How would you describe it?
Like just a jolting at first, and then a slight rolling near the end. I mean, we jumped up and grabbed our TVs. So it was strong.
George, was it strong enough of a jolt to actually have your TV move, where you thought, oh my goodness, this could actually tip over?
I wasn't sure. I just did it just for case. I didn't
just
want
in case, right?
I lost a TV from earthquake once, so. But this wasn't as strong as our last one. So.
What was the last one you felt?
Several years back, we had a 6.1, I think, and it was more rolling, but it lasted longer than this one. This one lasted maybe about 8-10 seconds.
Yeah, that's what our reporter who felt it in Marina del Rey said as well, about 10 seconds. And could you hear it? Could you hear the earthquake?
We didn't hear nothing, no. We just felt it.
And you said it was a jolt and then a rolling. And what was the scene like inside where you are?
Oh, just everything shaking. My blinds shaking, dishes rattling. But nothing serious, just shocking. Has
everything pretty much settled down right now, George? What are your neighbors coming outside, or are you seeing anything outside?
They all went back in. We're used to this.
Used to it, right? It's hard, though, right? You know, you think you get used to it, but still, every time one of these things happen, we're wondering, we keep hearing that we're due for another big one, and then, of course, something like this happens, and it rattles everybody's nerves, right?
That's what keeps us on edge, because we never know.
Got to stay on your toes. Do you have a earthquake kit or any sort of preparedness just in case?
Oh, yeah.
What do you have, George?
Just a standard one that I bought on, what's it called?
Amazon?
Amazon.
I've seen those out there, and of course it's very smart to have extra drinking water on hand, as well as canned food for a few days. Those necessities, medication, right? Extra medication. If you take medications, you should also make sure you have plenty on hand just in case.
Yeah,
right?
It's a good reminder for everybody. George, glad to hear you're prepared. Glad to hear you're okay, and no damage at your place. Thanks for calling in, George.
Sure, thanks. First time I've ever been on news.
You did a great job, George.
Well, we were glad to have you. Thanks, George.
Thanks so much.
All right, so we're getting a lot of calls about this 5.3 earthquake that hit off the coast of Ventura underwater. It was about 11 miles deep. So because of that, even though it's a moderate quake, we don't have any reports of significant damage. That's the good news this afternoon. We do have a lot of people who are pretty shaken up because this was a strong jolt and then a rolling motion that went on for about 8 to 10 seconds, but that doesn't sound long. But boy, when you're going through it, it's scary because you don't know what's coming next. LA Fire Department now in earthquake mode. They are sending out their crews to check out the structures around Los Angeles. They've got a wide territory to cover this afternoon, but so far we really don't have any reports that anything significant has been damaged. We know that LAPD is on patrol as well. Also in Ventura, the Oxnard Fire Department, no reports of damage, just saying it's a pretty good shaker, and they're also out with Oxnard PD looking for damage.
And when you think of the magnitude of what the fire department and police department have to check, when they go into earthquake mode, they check everything. Freeway overpasses, large places where people gather, Dodger Stadium, universities, UCLA, USC, those are also going to be checked. Apartment buildings, dams. They also have to look at power lines, Sandy, just in case they may have snapped or they may have been compromised in any way. And once they do the check and once the process is complete, all resources are rehoused. The firefighters immediately report back to headquarters with any reports of any significant damage or injuries. We haven't heard any of that just yet. And if there is no significant damage, the LAFD, for example, the earthquake mode is typically complete in less than 1 hour. So hopefully within the next hour or so, we're going to hear they're off earthquake mode. But they've got a lot of places to check, as I mentioned, universities, Dodger Stadium, any large areas where people gather, Sandra.
I think a lot of people are just thinking, wow, we got lucky this afternoon, right? No significant damage, 5.3. Dr. Lucy Jones, you probably know the name, a seismologist formerly with Caltech. She just tweeted this afternoon, the offshore faults that produced today's magnitude 5.3 quake are part of the system that moves Southern California around a bend of the San Andreas Fault. So it is linked to the San Andreas Fault. I think everybody knows the name of that fault as well. All right, we've got some more video coming into the newsroom. Let's go ahead and
let's listen, right?
Take a look at this.
Just had ourselves a little earthquake. Welcome to Los Angeles, everybody.
Little sense of humor will get you through it, right?
There's a little sense of humor, too, I'm finding on Twitter. Somebody had just posted that earthquake was big enough that everyone in this restaurant waiting on food looked up from their phones and actually acknowledged each other.
Now, that's a snapshot of Southern California.
That's totally something
right?
you would see, a little humor to deal with something so serious as this.
I bet there were some people so absorbed in their phones that they didn't notice as well. All right, if you are just joining us, we're recapping what is going on here in Southern California this afternoon. We've had an earthquake, magnitude 5.3. It was near the Channel Islands, actually offshore in the water, about 11 miles deep. So that explains why there's not any reports of damage coming in this afternoon. We do know that a lot of people felt it, though. People reporting it from Bakersfield all the way south to Orange County. A lot of people describing it as a jolt and then a rocking motion, saying that it went on for up to 10 seconds.
And that's what we're hearing from everybody, right, Sandy? The jolt and then the roll. We're getting word now from the Red Cross Los Angeles. They're just putting that reminder out there. As they want to know, do you know what to do when there is an earthquake? And they say, of course, to drop cover and hold on, go underneath a desk or underneath something safe. They have a website available, too, if you need safety tips. It's real easy to remember, too, preparesocal.org, preparesocal.org. That's from the Red Cross Los Angeles, just reminding us a little bit, just so we have it on the top of our minds. We are not expecting, again, any major earthquakes. This is not a precursor to a bigger quake. At least that's the preliminary information that we are getting. But it's still good to be prepared, as we heard from that viewer in Santa Barbara, George. He has an earthquake kit just in case. And, of course, if you don't have one, now might be a good time just to check the supplies you have at home, water, medicine, whatever you might need, right?
Yeah, I mentioned Dr. Lucy Jones, who's the seismologist we've been getting our information from. She says that the earthquakes like this, they happen about once a year in the LA area. So this is not out of the ordinary, but it is a good reminder, as you said, to have your quake kit ready and know what to do. And the correct procedure is to drop cover and hold on, get under some sturdy furniture, and then just hold on. A lot of people's instinct is to run. That's the wrong thing to do, because often people who are injured during earthquakes are hit by things that are falling. So we don't actually have any reports of damage or injuries right now. No reports of anything falling, but a lot of people report there was some pretty strong shaking going on this afternoon.
And a lot of people turning to Twitter right now just to put out word that they're okay, believe it or not. And they're actually thanking Twitter for being their platform, they said, to assure everybody that they're okay, that they survived this earthquake like many of us did. And right now you're looking at our chopper over one of our freeways right there. That's some of the areas that the fire department and the police department will go check. It looks like traffic is moving very smoothly in this area right now. So we're very glad to report that there are no damage, no injuries right now. And for those people that really felt the jolt and that are scared and their nerves are on edge, we want to let them know that, you know, things are going to be okay, that it looks like the worst has already passed. And because it was offshore, we should be continuing to report back to you that there are no injuries or major damage to report, right?
Yeah, offshore, that's the key word here. It happened underwater, about 11 miles deep, but there are reports that the boats in the Ventura Harbor were really rocking this afternoon, and there were people on those boats who felt them. Again, this is just offshore, east-southeast of Santa Rosa Island. And we should stress that even though it happened underwater, the Tsunami Warning Center is saying there's no tsunami danger, no tsunami warning for Southern California. All
right, you are, if you're watching us right now, this is continuing coverage of a 5.3 earthquake that happened right off Santa Rosa Island, off the Ventura County coast. We've been listening to our viewers who have been calling in. They've been telling us that they felt a very sharp hit and then a rolling motion. A lot of people reporting back to us that they didn't see any major damage to their homes. One viewer telling us they went right for their TV just in case. But the good news is, at least what we're hearing right now, a very large portion of our viewing area, even as far up as Bakersfield, felt this earthquake. But so far it looks like, because it was offshore, it was centered away from us, that there were no reports of any major damage or injuries. But look at the video that tells the story right there. There was that jolt, there was that rolling sensation, and of course these are lights and chandeliers that hang from the ceiling there. Of course, they're going to be the most visual that we're going to see when something like this happens. But it does happen, and a lot of people grab their phones and capture the action that takes place right after the earthquake. And you're going to feel that sensation for a few seconds afterwards, right?
Yeah, light swinging. We're here in our CBS LA studios in Studio City, and I didn't see the light swinging here. We have a lot of lights ahead, overhead, and I have been in the studio before when an earthquake hit, and things shake, and just didn't see it this time or feel it, really. We did talk to Andrea McLean, a caller who she was probably the person who was closest to the earthquake, who we've spoken to this afternoon. She's out in the Oxnard area. She says she ran outside and she saw a neighbor who said, "That was a big one. I'm scared." So I think a lot of people can relate to that this afternoon.
And take a look at this picture, Sandy. You see a fire truck right there, right underneath our banner, circling the shopping mall here where the JCPenney is at. Those are one of the many areas I was mentioning earlier where the LAFD, the LAPD will go out and check. These are areas where lots of people congregate. This is the shopping mall right there. You can see the parking lot is full of cars. They're doing a go around, and they're going to check to make sure there's no immediate visual damage to the mall. And of course, they're probably going to go inside, talk to mall security, talk to patrons, make sure that everything is safe and okay. And we're watching our fire department at work. This is what they do when they're in earthquake mode. They're going to check some of those large areas like Dodger Stadium, shopping malls, any area where large groups of people gather. We're looking at it happen right now.
Yeah, and they went into earthquake mode within moments. That looks like a Ventura City fire, which is very close to where the earthquake struck. We know that LA Fire Department has also sent out all of their crews. All 160 stations have been emptied this afternoon. They've got almost 500 square miles to survey, but they'll be out there as well looking at major structures to make sure that there's no damage.
While we watch firefighters survey this shopping mall right now, we want to bring in Melissa Valdez. She is with the Oxnard PD and the Community Affairs Department there. Melissa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, good afternoon.
Thanks so much for being with us, Melissa. Can you give us an idea, the information that you're getting out there in Oxnard?
Yes, so we have no reported damage in Oxnard at this time. We do have following our protocol and have our officers, checking their beat just to make sure, all of our residents are okay and that the structures are doing well. So at this time, we don't have any reported damages.
And Melissa, you're with Community Affairs there with the Oxnard PD. Are some of the people who live in the area that you guys cover calling in? Any concerns from the public?
We did have some calls, just people wanted to check in. Of course, I'm sure a lot of our family members have been calling, my family included, just to make sure that we're all doing okay. Which is standard whenever there's any kind of emergency or natural disaster. So thankfully, we haven't had any structural damages here in Oxnard.
Melissa, what's the next few hours like for the police department? What sort of things will they be doing?
Checking in with our residents, making sure that everybody is doing well. Of course, we, always want to check in with those who might be elderly or, don't have as much mobility, just to make sure that they're doing, okay. So we'll follow that protocol, and our emergency response services through the city, are activated. So you just follow those proper steps, just checking in on people.
And Melissa, it doesn't sound like you're overwhelmed at this point.
Right.
I know a lot of people's first instinct is to call 911, but that doesn't sound like that was an overwhelming response this afternoon.
I haven't checked in with our dispatch center yet. I'm sure there were a large volume of calls. Just as with any emergency, people, want to just make sure everybody is aware. But as far as here in Oxnard, because we haven't had any significant damage, I think most people are accustomed to earthquakes here in California. So we always try to keep our public aware. There's things that we need to do to make sure that we're all prepared. And, just stand by if there are any aftershocks coming with the earthquake.
Yeah, and there is, of course, that possibility, Melissa, that we are going to feel some aftershocks over the next few days or so. Melissa Valdez with Oxnard PD, thank you so much for being with us. We're talking about being prepared. Sandra, I'm checking with the Santa Clarita City Council people here. They actually put out, the city of Santa Clarita, they have these Quake Smart seminars that they hold. A lot of cities hold this. This is for local businesses and organizations and residents of the area. They want you to start thinking about attending these free workshops. It's being offered by many cities, and it's what to do, how to prepare for an earthquake. They'll show you what an earthquake kit looks like and exactly what to do. You can bring in your family. These are free. Many cities are offering it. I know the city of Santa Clarita is offering one on May 30th, so you may want to check into that. It's absolutely free. You can just check in on their website and sign up for it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and today's a really good reminder of why you need to do that. It's a good shaker this afternoon. Luckily, nobody hurt, no reports of any damage, but it is a very good reminder that you should have an earthquake kit and an earthquake plan, just in case communication services and things like that fail during a major earthquake. You want to know how to get in touch with your family or where your family might be.
For as many people who felt it, there were many like us who did not feel it here in our studio here. But again, we're moving around. We have guests coming into the studio, so we may not have been paying that close of attention. But definitely, indeed, we did feel an earthquake in our area here, right off the coast of Ventura County. And as you know, a lot of people go right to social media. They want to put out their experiences. They want to let people know they're okay. And I believe we have some of the tweets, Sandra, that we're going to be putting up on screen there that we'd like to share with some of our viewers. You can see there Shadow C. LaValle says, first earthquake experience since moving to L.A. was weird, but okay. Hashtag L.A. earthquake. And I'll tell you,
we've already got a hashtag.
Yeah, 22 years ago when I moved to Los Angeles, people warned me, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're moving there. because of earthquakes. And I'll tell you, living in South Florida where you have hurricanes, I'll take an earthquake any day. Definitely a different experience.
The thing I don't like about earthquakes is that you really don't know when they're coming. At least with the hurricane one, you get a warning, right?
You prepare, but there's just as much stress related to that as well. All right, let's check in with what Joe Starr is saying.
He said that hashtag earthquake was big enough that everyone in this restaurant waiting on food looked up from their phones and acknowledged, I think what he said was acknowledge one another. So it was enough to get people off social media, at least for a moment.
And Michael Fulham there, he says, everybody is talking about it. I hope you are safe and that there's only minor damage. There's another hashtag, hashtag LA Quake, hashtag earthquake. And my goodness, Twitter is getting flooded with tweets about the earthquake. And the good thing is, as Michael was saying, hopefully there's only minor damage. So far, we haven't heard of any damage. So that is definitely a good thing.
No, most of our callers are saying, yeah, things were shaking. We felt it.
They felt it.
We knew immediately that it was an earthquake. But so far, no reports of anything falling off shelves. We do have some video we were just showing you of things shaking. So let's recap for you. Just about 35 miles off the coast of Oxnard, near the Channel Islands, 11 miles deep in the ocean, this 5.3 earthquake linked to the San Andreas Fault. And it was felt across a very wide area of Southern California. A lot of people felt this one. Reports coming in from Bakersfield all the way to Orange County. But the good news is no reports of damage or injuries. And it happened just exactly 1 hour ago. So I would think within an hour we would know that if there were damage or injuries.
What you are going to be seeing over the next few hours or so are going to be members of the fire department, the police department, going to some major areas there. They're going to be out there checking for damage. This is what happens when they go on earthquake mode. They're going to be checking the shopping malls. We saw one of those fire trucks going and checking one of the malls. We're also going to see them check our freeways, our overpasses, our tunnels, large areas like universities, as well as Dodger Stadium. And as you see here, we are looking at a shot there of Caltech. I believe they're having a news conference. Let's go ahead and listen in.
And Dr. Susan Huff, I'm a seismologist with the U.S. Geological Survey in Pasadena.
All right, if you would, explain what exactly happened off Santa Cruz Island. A little bit louder, too. We're going to need to hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So we experienced what's currently set as a magnitude 5.3 earthquake. It's about 30 kilometers south of Santa Cruz Island, offshore, so in the Santa Cruz Basin. We have a depth somewhere between about 10 and 15 kilometers right now, but all of that is subject to change as we continue our analysis.
What about anything in the way of structural damage to anything on shore, any structures there in Santa Cruz? Have you received any anecdotal or confirmed information about any major problems related to this quake?
We haven't heard anything so far. We know from the Did You Feel It reports that it's been widely felt, including down the coast of California, but we haven't heard any reports of damage so far.
There was one report to the Did You...
Slide in front.
Okay. There was one report to the Did You Feel It system that suggests somewhat high intensity on the closest Channel Island, intensity 6, which might have caused light damage. But that's all the details we have at this point.
Right. So, for Dr. Huff, so a 5.3 magnitude that far away from the coast should not produce any major damage. Not here.
Not along the coast. The only possible issue of stronger shaking would be on the closest Channel Islands. But even then, in California, 5.3 is not going to cause significant damage.
The fact that it was 10 miles deep, is that shallow enough to explain why it was felt all the way in Los Angeles, but not felt, for example, at Santa Catalina Island or even other parts of Ventura County?
It's early to say much about the felt distribution at this point. A 5.3 is a good size jolt, so it's not surprising that it's felt fairly strongly, but not all that strongly. I felt it across the street, but nobody else in the building felt it.
Doctor, are there any particular seismic faults which are along this general area where the quake has happened, where we could see another quake triggered as a result of what we had at roughly about 12:30?
So there are a number of fault segments in the Santa Cruz Basin here, so a lot hosting strike-slip faults as we saw earlier today. We would expect aftershocks, and there is a potential for some triggered seismicity. We haven't seen anything so far.
Now there is one major fault that runs along in that area and extends into the Southern California coast area all the way down to Long Beach. Newport Inglewood fault. We know about 90 years ago, that was the Long Beach earthquake. That was a magnitude 7+. We haven't had anything massive along there. Is it possible we could see activity as a result of this quake, which could trigger anything along the Newport Inglewood?
Well, this event is not along the trace of the offshore continuation of the Newport Inglewood fault.
Okay.
It's farther west than that, but there's certainly fault systems offshore. There's always about a 1 in 20 chance that an earthquake like this will trigger something bigger than itself.
And that goes, it's about 5%, if I understand correctly, it's about 5% chance.
Yes.
It goes down quickly.
Yes.
Over time.
Yes.
It's been long enough now.
1 hour and 2 minutes.
Yeah. So the structure that this was on, we don't, the Santa Cruz Island, the channel, all the 8 islands, they're on a fault system of their own, are they not? There's
any number of faults offshore, and so I can't speak to the detailed fault that produced this event right now. But there is the potential for bigger earthquakes offshore. In 1925, there was a magnitude 6.6 earthquake near Santa Barbara that was closer to the shore. In 1812, there was a bigger event that we know very little about that caused a tsunami. That was reported in the Santa Barbara area. So there's the potential for bigger events, as in almost all of California.
Right, but in this case, for a tsunami, it has to be a much larger event than what we saw here.
Yeah, no, we don't expect significant effects from a magnitude 5.3 in California, and the odds that this is going to trigger anything bigger are very, very low.
It was like 5% right now, and then we're talking about if we go to another hour or so, what will those chances diminish to?
I don't know.
While you work on the math, part of the reason why this is making so much news is that we normally get a 5 at least once a year.
Sure.
We haven't had one in a while, so all of a sudden we have one, and it reignites the interest in seismology.
Wakes everyone up, indeed. So we haven't felt anything that strongly in Los Angeles since La Habra in 2014 in March. We've had other magnitude 5s around Southern California, but not really in felt areas. So down near Borrego Springs, near Anza Borrego, and up near Wasco, we've had some magnitude 5s over the last couple of years. But it's been a while since anyone in Los Angeles has had such a good reminder that we live in earthquake country.
So this is run-of-the-mill. This is a standard earthquake, and you expect the aftershock sequence to be normal.
That's the expectation, but we can never count on earthquakes to obey the averages. People in California always have to be mindful that a big earthquake is never likely. It's always possible, and earthquakes like this are the heads up of that.
Right, and can we also revisit when some people hear that it was felt in Montebello, but it wasn't felt by some people in Ventura? Is that based on where you're standing? If you're upstairs of a wood frame building, you're going to experience the swaying, you're going to experience the amplification more than if you're on the surface?
So yeah, it's a combination of the source, where you are, the sort of ground that you're on, and also the structure you might be in.
Yeah, and the distribution of shaking from any one earthquake can be complicated. It can depend on which way the fault actually breaks. Because if it breaks towards you, you're more likely to feel the shaking than if you're behind where it started and broke to. So there's a lot of details that control the shaking that you actually feel.
How much warning did you get from Shake Alert, if any, on this one? Do you know?
I think here in Los Angeles we did get tens of seconds, I believe. we can replay it.
Let's recap the details and louder.
Right. Let's come back to that warning.
Louder.
I was across the street. We got tens of seconds of warning, and before I actually felt the earthquake. So in this area.
How does that come in?
I'm sorry?
Is that on a cell phone? Is it on a pager?
This was a test system on a colleague's computer.
On a computer. So it's like an alert sound?
Yeah.
Right. We'll play it for you.
We'll play it later, yeah. You want a recap of the main earthquake details, Debbie? That's what you were shouting.
Yeah, nice
Okay, if you can introduce yourselves. Some of us are just beginning.
Sure. So my name's Dr. Jen Andrews. I'm the staff seismologist here at the Caltech Seismo Lab.
My name's Dr. Susan Huff. I'm a seismologist with the U.S. Geological Survey in Pasadena.
So the current details we have is that this was a magnitude 5.3 earthquake. It happened about 30 kilometers south of Santa Cruz Island, somewhere between about 10 and 15 kilometers depth, but we're still working on the details.
No reports of any serious damage or even minor damage. Have you heard any damage?
We haven't heard any anecdotal damage. As Dr. Huff mentioned, the reported felt intensity would suggest there could be some light structural damage on the islands very close by, but we wouldn't expect significant damage here on the coast.
Right, and there's not much structures on those islands. It's Park Service.
I don't believe so. And the level of shaking that was reported might have knocked things off of shells, for example, but it wouldn't have seriously damaged any structures.
Do we have any kind of a history of this particular fault in this particular zone being active within the last 5, 10, 15 years of this magnitude?
So I was doing a search in our historic catalogue, which goes back to the 1930s. In this area of the Santa Cruz Basin, we have seen two over magnitude 4 in our catalogue, one at 4.2, one at 4.8. We haven't got anything recorded over 5 here in the Santa Cruz Basin, but it does have a number of fault segments. So,
Can you do a recap of that warning that you were talking about? A computer, just explain that to us.
Well, just to finish up the thought on historical events, the most significant earthquake in that region was way back in 1812 in December. It did generate a reported tsunami, not a major one, but one that was reported. We just don't know very much about that earthquake, including what fault it happened on, because it was just too early in our history.
We've been listening to a news conference from Caltech in Pasadena talking about this 5.3 earthquake that hit just about an hour and 10 minutes ago. The good news is no injuries and nobody is reporting any damage.
They're getting quite a bit of reports on the Did You Feel It reports all along the coast as far as Murrieta, Bakersfield, Palmdale, a lot of people feeling it. One of the strongest reports came from one of the Channel Islands closest to where the earthquake happened. That was an intensity 6, and as the folks there were saying, that might cause some light damage. But so far, we've checked in with LAPD, LAFD, Oxnard Police, and Fire as well. So far, no reports of any damage, no reports of any injuries. And while there's always the potential for bigger earthquakes, right now they are saying the possibility is very, very, very low. So while we're here to inform, we're also here to calm people's nerves and let them know hopefully the worst has passed.
Yeah, everything's going to be okay. We've got some great video coming into the newsroom from the Channel Islands National Park. The folks out there, they have an Eagle Cam set up, and the Eagle Cam was recording when the earthquake happened. Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
Oh. You can hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it and you can see Mom was startled.
Mom took off.
She flew away, but
there she's back.
She's back, and it looks like the baby's okay. The nest held and stayed in the tree. Again, no reports of damage, but it was a 5.3, a moderate earthquake that hit at 12:29 this afternoon off the coast of Ventura near the Channel Islands, about 11 miles deep. And that's why there is good news that there is no damage to report this afternoon.
And let's not forget, we have not had a 5.0 and greater quake since March of 2014, as the ladies there at Caltech was reporting. So it's been 4 years since we felt something this strong. So for those wondering why is this such a big deal right now, it is a big deal because we haven't had something this strong in 4 years. We usually have somewhere between a 5 or less at least once a year, but it's been a while since we've had one. So always a great idea to be prepared for the possibility of yet another earthquake.
All right, we'll keep covering this story this afternoon, get you up to date on KCAL 9 News at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Or, of course, you can check in with our Facebook and other social media at CBS LA. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
There's all these bills here, and I want to give what she bought the car for. So
I want to give her everything.
Okay, very
good.
And
which comes to what she's asking, $3,070.
And
she's not even asking for all the money that she paid him.
We now join our regular program, already in progress.
Remain seated. Come to order. This courtroom is again in session.
So when I came out to begin the case, I asked if this was going to be a fair fight. Well, it wasn't. This young woman is a powerful young woman. You answered all of our questions and all of our concerns, and the evidence, I might say, sir, is clearly circumstantial, but it certainly reveals that while this car was in your possession, that odometer